Welcome back to Being Integrated. I'm Jude, and today we're doing a review of one of the best books I've read in a while, Johann Hari's Stolen Focus. Now, at first I wasn't sure if I actually wanted to read this book because I felt I was already very familiar with all of the themes. I have been following this issue of focus when it comes to ADHD, social media, etc. for quite a while. I have ADHD, I'm a meditation teacher. I did a very deep dive on ADHD causes and strategies because I made a whole course on meditation for ADHD, how to transform the underlying experience of ADHD, the restlessness, the distractibility, to be more relaxed and focused in our lives. Link below if you want to buy it. I've also been following the social media stuff for quite a while. I listened to the podcast, Your Undivided Attention by Tristan Harris and Asa Raskin, both of who are interviewed in the book and inform a lot of the book's content, at least in that particular section. So as someone who's already done a deep dive on these topics, I wasn't sure if there's going to be enough new here and interesting enough to really hold my attention. Remember, I have ADHD, but there was so much great information here that I was not aware of. Johann Hari is a really brilliant writer, storyteller. So the narratives, the interviews, all of that really pulls you in. He really has a brilliant way of doing it. And he gives a lot of backstory on these issues and these people that I had no idea about. And I finished this book more quickly than I finished a book in quite a while. I did part of it audiobook, part of it on my Kindle. And I gotta say, the audiobook is one of the best read audiobooks I've ever encountered. He reads it himself, and it doesn't sound dry at all. It is really captivating. He's great at it. He should read other people's audiobooks. He's very good. In the book, he talks about his own struggles with focus, and then him going on a multi-month hiatus from the internet. That is right. He cuts off the internet for, I forget, like 2 or 3 months, a whole summer, in an attempt to regain his focus. And he does. And then, of course, he slides back into distractibility when he re-enters the world. In the book, he talks about how it's not really practical to do these long hiatuses, these social media detoxes, or as they're often called on YouTube, dopamine detoxes. They're not sustainable. They're not really the answers to the problems we're looking for. And I give it to Johann Hari. He really pulls you in with the narratives, with the interviews, and his own experience and thought process. He goes on a journey talking to many world experts about the loss of our attention, and it goes so much deeper than the loss of our attention. I really feel this is the issue of our times and the challenge of our times. The reality is that social media and the social media algorithms are creating a lot of division, and along with that, polarization, extremism, and it's really making it difficult for us to get anything done collectively because we're too busy arguing about either menial things or big things that we're not maybe fully informed on. And there's just constant conflict, there's constant issues. Social media is really hijacking our limbic system and giving us what will grab our attention and often enrage us, because that's what the algorithms are designed to do, hold our attention, similar to how we all look at car accidents. It's part of our nature to slow down and really pay attention to these horrific things or these threats. And social media has really been exploiting this and has really created a very divided society. And as a result, it's really hard to address the real issues that need to be addressed, like climate change or the failings of our democracy or the increasing divisions in wealth. This book really gets to the heart of a lot of these issues, especially in the social media chapter where he's talking to Tristan Harris and Asa Raskin, who have a brilliant podcast I would highly recommend if this stuff interests you, Your Undivided Attention. And he also talks to experts on what we can do about these issues. Now, there's so much content in this book that many of these chapters could be books into themselves, and I decided to do a few more videos exploring some of the themes. The two I'm really interested in are, one, his conflict with Nir Eyal and how they see things really differently. Nir wrote a book called Indistractible, and they have quite a contentious argument in the book, in the interview that they did, which he then talks about in the book. So I'm gonna make another video exploring that more in depth, and I'll post it when it's up. I'll post a link here or wherever it shows up. And then the other really contentious issue he talks about is the cause of ADHD or the causes of ADHD. And this is something I've researched a lot on my own. And there's a lot of controversy, there's a lot of competing views, but I really feel like he nailed it in the book. I feel like he really got to the bottom of it, or at least made things a lot more clear. So again, I'm gonna do a video on that. But ultimately, the book is so important because it looks at the larger social issues happening that are really problematic for us. Not just us like you and me, but our whole collective well-being, and especially the next generation of children. So if you're a parent, I would highly recommend reading this book. There's a whole section on the isolation of the child and how they're losing this sense of play and they're not learning like they used to. The foundation of learning is creative play, largely unsupervised. And what's happening is that's getting pushed out. Things are being more and more supervised, more and more structured. And we actually need to go back to a more unstructured way of being. We need to give kids more freedom to explore. And he talks about all the reasons why this is so difficult, the reasons it's being pushed out. This stuff is super interesting. He also talks about toxins, environmental toxins in the air and our foods, and some of the evidence around these things affecting our brains and affecting our attention. Now, this is one area where he didn't go as deep as I would have liked. He kind of talks about one researcher and then he talks about some other conflicting views, but I would have really liked if he had dug deeper and found more supportive evidence around what he's saying. But throughout the book, he's really good at this. And I think he's actually quite brilliant at synthesizing information, making it clear, and really challenging things. And he has a background in this. He's really trained to read the scientific papers, to look for holes in the arguments. And he really seeks out competing experts that he can also interview. And I feel like he really does get to the bottom of a lot of these issues in a way that very few people do. Everything seems super clear, and he really validated a lot of my feelings about things that I didn't have all the evidence to back them up yet. And in the book, he talks about what needs to happen collectively for us to be better, for us to regain our focus, but more than that, our well-being. He really talks about us being in the state of hypervigilance. Like we're constantly scanning our environment for danger. We're unable to really settle down in ourselves. And this has been my experience in my life, and this is why I got so into meditation and psychotherapy, and why I ended up doing my meditation for ADHD course, which again, you can buy, link in the description. First module, you can watch the video for free. Just to get a taste. The course I did and the other content I've done on this channel, especially the video for ADHD, is really about this. It's really addressing this core issue of this hypervigilant nervous system, this nervous system that can never really relax and settle and focus. And while some people have like ADHD, you find a lot of people that don't have ADHD have this challenge as well. So the course and this content that I'm doing is for everyone who has that challenge of really getting truly settled in their being. And Johann talks about the environmental factors, and I couldn't agree with him more. He basically said trying to overcome our distraction is like trying to run up a down escalator. That yes, some will make it, but we're always fighting against the grain. We're trying to swim upstream here. And he really calls for a big social movement to enact change. And he does this in a really skillful way. He talks about other social movements that have enacted change. He even interviews people who have been parts of these big social movements that have enacted change. And he makes a strong case that not only is it practical, but it's kind of inevitable, and that we should get it started soon because the clock is ticking. There are many historical precedents for this big change coming, for us pushing back against these big multi-trillion-dollar industries. And I'm fully on board with everything he's saying. I think that we really need to address the larger issues. That being said, we need to address our own well-being right now as well. And that's what I do on the channel, so you can subscribe, like. But I do think a larger social movement is so incredibly important. And I really, truly hope that this book becomes a part of spurring that social movement on. So that social movement has already begun, and at the end of the book, he talks about ways that you can connect with organizations trying to create change. And I'm going to do a lot more on these topics. I've been interested in them for a long time, and I really think that the more we can collectively get educated, the more we can understand what the actual problems are, the better we'll be equipped to solve them collectively, not just individually. So while I really want to empower you to take control of your life, I also want to say, you're up against a really difficult environment, and hopefully we can come together and try to enact some larger changes in our environment. And overall, I don't have many criticisms of this book, except for a few areas I had wished he had gone deeper, or a few points I wish he had made. One of the points that I wish was in the book was more about the meaning crisis, that people are losing focus because things don't feel as meaningful as they used to. And maybe it's hard to get scientific data to back this up, but I do believe it's out there. But from working with clients, from my own experience, from friends, from just meeting and talking with people, it seems like we've kind of given up on the world. Like we've given up that we can have a meaningful role to play in a better world. And because there's not this underlying meaning, this drive to be doing something that's going to really be impacting people, we just kind of get lost in it all. We get lost in the information and all the viral videos in social media because there's not a deeper meaning that's driving us collectively in a better direction to be able to help one another, to be able to care for one another, to be able to make the world a better place. So I think that in itself is maybe too big of a topic to really deeply get into, considering all the topics that are explored in the book. But I think it is a huge factor that he only touched on really briefly a few times in the book and didn't explore the larger crisis of meaning and just the general dismay that people feel about our world. So that's my quick review, but stay tuned for more because I'm going to be doing a lot more videos on a few of the topics, diving more deeply into them, especially the controversy with Nir Eyal, which I can't wait to get into because that one was really juicy. And I actually love Nir Eyal in a lot of ways, but I also super side with Johann Hari because I really think that Nir Eyal is missing some of the big points. So I'll dive more into that in the future. And then also the stuff about ADHD. He touches on ADHD a lot in the book. And whatever your view is, because I know there's a lot of different views I think there are certain things we can all agree on. And we can recognize the challenges that are arising collectively and the symptoms that are then arising in the individuals. That's it for this video. Like and subscribe and comment if you would like. I really love reading comments. And lots more to come on these topics. Thank you for tuning in.